Hello and welcome back to, or for the very first time, to the channel. I am William Gwynne, and today I'm going to be talking about a book haul because, yes, I admit, I'm a book lover and I buy more books than is probably healthy. I mean, actually once, it was pretty silly to be fair. I had a shelf above my bed and obviously you buy more and more books. The shelves are full up, every book lover's problem, I guess. And then I was sleeping and the shelf above my head decided to just snap and try to smother me. So yeah, I woke up with about 30 books on top of me. So I guess that's a good way to wake up in one way. The books didn't destroy me and I could actually stand up, so that was helpful. But yes, I have bought so many books that the shelves are full and piles are starting around the room. I have to step over them to get into my room and so on. But it is worth the sacrifice, and I'm going to show you the books that are causing those problems. But I call the book buying a gift rather than a curse, because I say reading and book buying are two entirely different hobbies, because probably half of my books I've not read, which is pretty bad when you look at it that way. But you just have to buy more. You think, okay, I've got so many books to read, and then you look online and you see more and more. You go to a bookshop and you just see more books that they need you, don't they? They need you to look after them. But now let's get into the books. First up, the special edition of Wrath arrived from the Broken Binding. They were releasing one instalment every 3 months of The Faith and the Fallen as the 10-year anniversary editions. Crazy. So yes, on the 6th of December, it marked 10 years since Malice, the first book of The Faith and the Fallen by Papa Gwynne, was released. It's crazy that he's now been an author for 10 years. I mean, it always does feel surreal seeing his books in stores, and obviously I absolutely adore these books, but then think of him as Papa Gwynne, not John Gwynne, the creator of Welds, you know. But of course, I'm very proud of him, and it's crazy to see Wrath and the whole set of The Faith and the Fallen finished in special editions, and I love that blue colour. Very nice. And yeah, so that is Wrath by the Broken Binding, well, by Papa Gwynne, but the special edition by the Broken Binding to add to the shelf. And next up I have, so last week I watched a film called Living, and it's just been released, and it has Bill Nye in it, and it was inspired by the short story by Leo Tolstoy called The Death of Ivan Ilyich. So Living is about a man who finds out that he has a terminal illness and as such only has a short while to live, and it's about him trying to find purpose whilst before he's lived life to quite a monotonous beat, a life of repetition. And so he's trying to find what purpose and live life to the full that he can in the time he has left. And so Living, the film, was inspired by Akira Kurosawa's film Ikiru, which in turn was inspired by The Death of Ivan Ilyich by Leo Tolstoy. So I cannot wait to read it. I've never read anything by Tolstoy before, so it'd be interesting starting with this. And if I enjoy it, of course, I will go through these other short stories as well. But yes, it's been a long time coming, and I'm finally making the dive into Leo Tolstoy's work. And the film Living has gone down in my top 10 films of all time. Please do watch it. It transcends genre. If you are not into that type of film, please still watch it. It's one of those rare films or books which I believe no matter what you usually enjoy, you will find something to make the experience worthwhile when you watch this film. So yeah, and I cried basically the whole time. I've never cried at so many different points in a film. At times I didn't even know why I was crying. It was just so moving, and it wasn't over sentimental, it just felt real, and that made the impact even more powerful. But yeah, that is The Death of Ivan Ilyich by Leo Tolstoy. I will hopefully be reading this in December. Talking about books I'm going to read in December, I've got another one, and the next up is The Passenger by Cormac McCarthy. So I ordered a slipcase edition of The Passenger and Stella Maris, which Cormac McCarthy has gone, I think, 14 years without releasing a book, so he thought, you know what, I'll just release 2 a month apart, as you do. So they're kind of twin novels, so I believe that The Passenger is from the perspective of one person, and then Stella Maris is from their twin. And they are different stories, but they're just intertwined in that way. So this is about, I believe, the children of the person who created the Hiroshima bomb. So it'll be very interesting. Cormac McCarthy has an incredible writing style, and he alters it depending on the tone and atmosphere that he's trying to create. He really is a maestro of writing and of prose. And yes, I was waiting for my slipcase, and then I realised Stella Maris has been released a month after, so I went ahead and ordered this so it would arrive. And yeah, so I'll be reading The Passenger in December, and hopefully I will have a review up on the channel. So yeah, that is The Passenger. Cormac McCarthy, one of my favourite authors of all time. Of course, I had to get his new book. And now, next up, I'm going back to some fantasy. Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldry. This is the special edition by The Broken Binding. So it had these lovely little sprayed edges. And also it came with an art card, which is always pretty awesome, isn't it? And so Legends and Lattes, I listened to it on Audible as it is narrated by the author himself, because he was originally an Audible narrator. And so this is a very unique book. It is about an orc who was a warrior mercenary, retiring and setting up her own coffee shop. So there we go. It is very heartwarming. It is very funny, humorous. It's just funny thinking of an orc and then just subverting your expectations, setting out a coffee shop, because they are human beings. And so, well, orc beings. You know what I mean. And yeah, it was really enjoyable. I think that at the end it became a bit more into the plot, and it was weird that when it became led more by the plot, it wasn't as enjoyable. It's weird. The more plot, it wasn't as good in this, but it's still very enjoyable. I think I gave it 4 stars, and yeah, it was certainly worthy of that. And I think this is one that everyone could enjoy. It's a palate cleanser. We all need them from time to time. It's easy to get into reading slumps, and I think this is one that will get you right out of it or stop one before it even begins. So yeah, I highly recommend Legends and Lattes, even if you're just a little bit intrigued, because it is such a unique book because of that premise. And yeah, please do read it. And yeah, very happy to have this Broken Binding special edition. I guess I like the Broken Binding, huh? Next up, I have 2 Penguin Classics books. So The Odyssey by, you guessed it, Homer, and then Paradise Lost by John Milton. So yeah, some epic poems in here. I just love these leather-bound classic editions. They're just awesome, and they make me feel cool when they're on the shelf. I mean, you just imagine just hanging there. It's just so cool, so cool. And yeah, so these are 2 epic poems. I have read only the first of, I believe there's 12 books in Paradise Lost. I've only read the first 2, and so yeah, I definitely need to read them. I've read The Odyssey and really enjoyed it. I actually preferred it over the Iliad. So yeah, that's an interesting topic talking about which is better, the Iliad or the Odyssey. Obviously they're 2 incredible works, but the Odyssey, yeah, I really enjoyed. Found it a bit more engaging because it was a bit more varied in topic, and probably because I wasn't as familiar with it as the Iliad, to be fair, because obviously that is the tale of the fall of Troy, the most famous part, Achilles, Hector, Agamemnon, all of that stuff. And so yeah, maybe that's why I enjoyed the Odyssey more, because it was a bit fresher. But also Paradise Lost, brilliant epic poem from what I've read, and I definitely need to read the rest. And I'm very happy to have these 2 leather-bound classic Penguin editions. And my name is Gwynne, so Pen Gwynne always has to fit. So where are my next books? Next up, so I have some Robin Hobb, and that is the Rainwild Chronicles, her quartet, which is books 10 to 13 of her Realm of the Elderlings series. So I committed sacrilege. I'm sorry. I have to apologise every time I mention it, because when I read Realm of the Elderlings, I just wanted Fitz, who's the main character in 3 of the trilogies. So I read the Farseer trilogy, the Tawny Man trilogy, and the Fitz and the Fool trilogy. So I skipped Live Ship and I skipped the Rainwild Chronicles. These aren't as beloved as the other books from what I've heard, but still worth the read, as what many people have recommended. And yeah, I watched all the reviews on Jimmy Nuts' channel, The Fantasy Network, and it made me want to begin my Realm of the Elderlings journey once again. So I'll be doing a reread of the series that I did read within the Realm of the Elderlings, the mini-series, but I will not be committing sacrilege this time, so I have to rectify my mistakes. I'll be reading Live Ship, which I cannot wait to do. I've been watching the reviews on Mike Book Reviews channel, and it's just making me feel that love again for Hobb's writing. And so yes, I'll be rereading the Fitz trilogies, but adding the Live Ship and Rainwild into the mix. And now I have a full shelf of Robin Hobb books. And whilst I wouldn't say individually they're not great covers, I would say they're a bit they're not unique to the story, but when they're all together, because there's a similar theme throughout the entirety of Realm of the Elderlings covers, they look amazing on the shelf all next to each other. Very unique, and you can tell that they're all part of the same world and series. So yeah, that is the Rainwild Quartet. Next up, I have Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. So I talked about Living earlier with the death of Ivan Illich. So the person who was integral to the idea of doing the film Living, and wrote the screenplay for it was Kazuo Ishiguro, who is, of course, a huge author, and Clara and the Sun is one of his most famous, if not his most famous works, and yes, he is a Nobel Prize winner of literature. So this is partly set in the future, I believe. It's about AI, and it's a... Let me just read a bit of the blurb. So, from her place in the store, Clara, an artificial friend with outstanding observational qualities, watches carefully the behaviour of those who come in to browse. And of those who pass in the street outside, she remains hopeful a customer will soon choose her. But when the possibility emerges that her circumstances may change forever, Clara is warned not to invest too much in the promises of humans. So it sounds like it's a bit about human nature, and obviously set in the future, those questions of artificial intelligence. And yeah, sounds really interesting. A lot of people who I trust, who I know have read it, have really enjoyed it. And yeah, it's Kazuo Ishiguro, and I'm in love with Living and absolutely obsessed with it at the moment. I've watched every single interview to do with the film. So now get to the books. And next up, I have Where the Crawdads Sing. So I believe this was released last year, or perhaps the year before, but it was an absolute phenomenon. It's one of the best-selling books since then, and it's a crime, murder, mystery, drama, but with some other hidden depth. Apparently the characters are absolutely brilliant, and it's a lot about their background and a bit of a Bildungsroman at the same time. I believe, I may be wrong, I'm saying from what I remember, but yes, I was definitely intrigued. And there was a film adaptation recently. I don't think it was meant to be very good, but there's so many millions of people now who are fans of Where the Crawdads Sing, and so yep, I had to get it. Hopefully I do get around to it. Hopefully it doesn't become another of those books that is on the shelf in the TBR pile, the endless TBR pile. But yeah, I plan to pick this up at some point. I mean, there's just so many books out there. Better too many books than too few, I say. So next up, I have A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms by George R. R. Martin. So yes, he has very kindly been doing other projects instead of finishing A Song of Ice and Fire. But let's not moan about that now. Let's look on the positive. More Westeros works. And so yes, I really enjoyed listening to Fire and Blood, which is a prequel about the histories of the Targaryens. And so yeah, I did really enjoy that. There's bits that are a bit dry, a bit repetitive at times. Basically, it's about a Targaryen having incest with one of their family, and then Westeros not enjoying it, revolting, boom. But that's only a section of it which seemed a bit repetitive. The rest is really interesting, and obviously watched House of the Dragon recently and really enjoyed that as well. And of course, as I said, I'm loving A Song of Ice and Fire. So A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, really looking forward to diving into this as well. George R. R. Martin just has incredible prose, and yeah, I cannot wait to read anything that he has put out. And yeah, I'm not the first to say that. There are millions of his fans, so I'm jumping on the bandwagon a bit late there, but I'm certainly enjoying the ride. Next up, I have the Booker Prize winner of this year, and it is The Seven Moons of Marley Almeida. So I think this is a satirical story about a war photographer who is killed, but he's stuck between life and the afterlife, and before he can proceed any further, he has to find out who killed him. So it's a bit of a mystery, murder mystery there, but it's satirical at the same time. It's a bit of a social commentary, I believe, but I've heard that it's very entertaining, but very deep at the same time, so you can really go beyond that surface level. But yeah, it's one that it's got many different layers. You can enjoy it just as what it is, but you can dive further into the themes and topics as well. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading this. I've had a bit of a tradition in the last few years where I read one of the Booker Prize winners, because you have the International Booker winner or the Man Booker Prize. So yeah, I'll pick one of them and I'll read that every year. So this year it is The Seven Moons of Marley Almeida, and hopefully at some point on the channel I'll have a video ranking the Booker Prize winners that I've read. Whew. Okay, there are not many left, I promise you. Next up, I have a folio special edition of Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. Blood Meridian is one of my favourite books. Well, it sounds weird to say favourite when it's such a gruesome, horrible book in many ways, but I think it is fantastically written, and it's not gratuitous, and I think it's very, very powerful. And I was a bit disappointed, to be honest. The cover's okay, but the art within, it felt like the illustrator didn't know what fans of Blood Meridian really, really love. It felt like Folio just picked an artist without looking at someone who would maybe emphasize what is great about Blood Meridian. It felt a bit like it wasn't a fitting pairing. So yeah, but I'm still happy to have the special edition because it is Blood Meridian, and yeah, the more Cormac McCarthy books in the house, the better. Next up, I have another Folio Society book, but I was very, very happy with this edition. The artwork inside is sketches, basically, but it really accentuates the kind of tone and atmosphere of the book. So, of course, this is book 1 of the Wolf Hall trilogy by Hilary Mantel, which is set in the 16th century, and this is about Thomas Cromwell, who somehow rose up the ranks of society in a time where class system was so rigid, and rose to be the right-hand man of Henry VIII. And yes, Henry VIII, we know, had a very controversial reign, and so Thomas Cromwell plays an integral part in the political machinations, the twists and turns, and how they managed to keep the masses on side. So yeah, book 1 was absolutely fantastic. Thomas Cromwell is one of the greatest characters in literature, in my opinion, and I've only read the first book. So yeah, I definitely need to carry on with the trilogy, and I plan to finish them next year. But yeah, that is the special edition of Wolf Hall, and I'm very happy to have that as well. And now, I've only got one more series to talk about. Crikey, we're at the end, and that is the Broken Binding special editions of The Shadow of What Was Lost, an echo of things to come, and the light of all that falls. So yes, I am part of the Broken Binding subscription, and they're chunky books, so they're hard to pick up. There we go. And yeah, I've been part of the subscription, and these were the last trilogy, well, the most recent trilogy to be on there. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading the Lycanius trilogy. I've heard that it's a very interesting, fresh take on the fantasy genre, taking it in a new direction. A lot about the question of fate, destiny, the power it plays, and something about if you do terrible things, but you're doing it to change the past, and if you succeed, the terrible things won't have happened. Is it worth it? Is the greater good a good or bad thing? Should you do things that are bad in the moment but yield a greater result? Is it worth it? So yeah, it's a good philosophical question, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the Lycanius trilogy battles with that. So that is my book haul. Sorry if I've been talking too long. The fact that my coffee is going a bit cold is indicative of how long I've been talking, I believe. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed me talking about these books. These are the ones that are causing me problems and making me trip everywhere. So yeah, you get to see them. And there's a great wide mix of books here that I'm looking forward to really diving into. You got fantasy, literary fiction, novellas, short stories, and so on. And some special editions, of course, into the mix of that. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know what books you've bought recently. Have you read any of these? Will you be reading any of these? Are there any books that I said that I love that you have similar recommendations to? So hopefully you ask some of those questions or answer some of those questions below. I look forward to talking to you down there. So thank you everyone for watching. I'm looking forward to having more and more on this channel, and yeah, this is the first of hopefully many book hauls that I will have on here. I was going to say this channel on here, but then I said there. So yeah, me creating words on the channel now as well. But everyone, thank you so much for watching, and take care.